final Golden Demon of the year in Germany just ended. Miniatures were insane. And believe it or not, we're only a few months out until Adepticon 2026. So it's time to get back on the path to Golden Demon. Welcome back to Warforged Miniatures. We're getting back on the path to Golden Demon. After watching and reviewing the amazing miniatures that were presented at Golden Demon in Spiel Essen, it really motivated me and kind of lit a fire under my butt to get going for Golden Demon at Adepticon 2026. If you haven't been following the series, make sure to go back and watch the videos, but if you have, you know that I'm entering Golden Demon for the first time after having only been painting for about a year at this point. And in the previous videos, I already picked what I'm going to do and began kit bashing my first entry for Golden Demon. So the next logical step was to get the base so that we can get everything finished, so we can prime everything and get going on the actual painting so that I'm not totally rushed and I have plenty of time to paint over the next couple months. While I still have some kit bashing to do, I really needed to get a plinth. So at first I was just kind of looking on the internet. I checked a bunch of sites, Green Stuff World, there's some listings on Amazon for plinths, but not a ton of that were the exact size I was really looking for. And the other problem was I wasn't entirely sure of the size that I needed. So after having searched just for a little while, I decided I'm just gonna make my own plinth. I made a trip to Home Depot and couldn't really find anything in the size that I wanted. And then while just looking through my garage and going through a bunch of old scrap wood I had, I found an old fence post that had gotten rotted out at the bottom. I ended up replacing it. So I had this fence post and the top part was semi-fine. It was painted and obviously it had been outside for a while, so it was a little rough. So all I did was basically cut a cube out of it. So I cut off all of the painted edges and smoothed everything, and then cut it roughly into the shape that I wanted, and just made sure that all the sides were bare wood and sanded it down. After making the first draft of the plinth, I guess I would call it, brought it downstairs to the desk and started kind of plotting out how I wanted the miniatures to sit on there and what I wanted to do. If you don't remember, this is the image that I'm trying to recreate in miniature form. It's Ragnar Blackmane standing on a pile of war rubble. The wider painting is a battle scene of orcs versus the space wolves. It's basically like a one-on-one. In the middle is Ragnar Blackmane and Gazgul Thraka, and then around them is like a huge battle, which you're seeing the image right now. But I'm just basically cutting a sliver out of that and just creating the Ragnar holding the head of the severed orc with the body underneath. One, because I definitely not going to have enough time to create an entire diorama with all of this, and two, because I actually for the longest time didn't know this was a part of a bigger picture, because originally I saw this image in the Space Wolves Codex, which doesn't show the full image. It just shows Ragnar cut out of it. So that was why I originally just chose to do that. But I also decided that I wanted to paint the backdrop, just because mainly the majority of the experience I have painting is like traditional painting on a canvas. So I think that will give me somewhat of an advantage, because I do think I can paint that backdrop pretty successfully, and then it will also ground the mini, and like in a full scene it'll kind of just make everything make more sense, especially because I think I'm going to be doing like a little bit of an OSL effect from like the blast that's behind him. Clearly in the image there's some kind of like fire or something behind him which you can't really see, but that will allow me to bring that into the miniature without it kind of like seeming like out of nowhere. So after realizing that the plinth was still a little bit too big, brought it back outside, trimmed it down some more, and then I also got another piece of wood to make the backdrop. I didn't film this part, but then after that I just sanded it, painted it black, and I varnished it with some matte varnish, a few coats, and it came out really well. I think I have an image of the plain plinth by itself, so that should be shown right now, but I think it came out really well. It's gonna look, I mean, it's just a plinth. It has to be like, it's a black square. It's not that complicated, but I'm happy. The next step was to actually base this miniature and actually create the rubble war debris scene. I knew I wanted to have some kind of like concrete rubble kind of sticking out in different various spots of the miniature, so I was gonna buy some rubble like from Amazon, just some like basic basing rubble, but I thought like that's kind of stupid. It was like $10 for like, I don't know, basically like little pieces of concrete. I don't know. So I just decided to make up like a little frame on top of some aluminum foil, and I poured a little bit of like just ready-made concrete mix. I Vaselined it so that it would kind of all loosen up, but just poured in some water and added that to the forms that I made on top of the aluminum foil. While I didn't stick them down all the way, so it kind of leaked out, you'll see in the end it did exactly what I was looking for. So after I had time to dry, it was basically 2 tiles almost of concrete. After I had those 2 tiles done and they were dry completely, I just grabbed a little pliers thing and I broke it up into a bunch of different little shards of rubble. Came out exactly how I wanted, and is definitely a little bit of a hack there for hobbying. If you need some rubble, you can use some actual concrete and make these little forms, and for the price of 1 bag of concrete, you will have all the rubble you'll ever possibly need for miniature basing. Like, I made way too much. You'll see I don't even really use that much of it in the end. It was literally just for like a few pieces, but I kind of poured too much concrete in the cup, which was not a lot. It was like half of a little cup of concrete. After I had the concrete done and the plinth was completely ready to go, I just wrapped it in some painter's tape to protect it and got to basing. I'm really trying to stick very closely to the actual source image, but obviously I just have that one angle and there's stuff obstructing the view, so I'm really just trying to make like a basic rubble pile, and I don't want it to be too distracting because it really isn't the main focus of the painting at all. But I needed to add height, and I need to fit this dead body on there. This dead body with the severed head laying in front of Ragnar. So I just started building up the base. I used some aluminum foil to kind of just conserve some of the epoxy putty that I'm using, give it like initial height. And then I just built up with some epoxy putty, adding in some rubble pieces in so they'll like jut out as I did it, and I just epoxied it up and just kept building it up until I got to like a height that I felt was right. Then using the miniatures themselves, I like kind of placed them and kept moving them around to make sure that the cape would fit and not hit the backdrop, that Ragnar was still very visible while the orc body kind of like pushed into the epoxy putty so that he wasn't kind of like jutting out too much and kind of in the way, just trying to make it all fit. You'll notice while I'm doing this that there are some updates to the kit bashing I did with the miniatures, which I'm going to get into another video because I still have more to do on that, and I didn't really want to kind of just present half of it, but I did do more on the kit bashing. For example, you see the shoulder pads on the dead orc body, and I changed the actual orc, like the base piece, because I added in the bare hand. Originally I was just gonna do like my own, I was like not gonna keep it looking like that at all and just kind of do a dead orc with a head cut off because I wasn't really confident in my kit bashing. But the more I do it and the more I've been sculpting, I am feeling a little bit better about it. So after seeing all the freaking amazing miniatures at Golden Demon Essen, I just felt inspired to kind of push myself a little bit. So we'll get into that more in the next video, and I think I'm pretty excited to show you the evolution of that. But back to basing. Once I got the miniatures completely set up where I wanted them to be, I like pressed in the orc so that he had like really indented well, and then I also kind of made sure that Ragnar's feet were indented. And then I went about adding just some different bits and features, some more of the rubble pieces that I made. Found these like plastic tubes, and so I added them in there to make them kind of look like pipes and stuff like sticking out, because this is like blasted territory. There's some like wood. This is like a battlefield. They're definitely in like a civilian area. As you can see from the background of it, there's like buildings, so There's some wood pieces, some rubble pieces, some rock pieces. I added some, like I said, some tubes, some plastic tubes for piping, and just kind of like spread them out so that little bits of interest everywhere. Another thing that I want to do is from the orc's head that's laying on the ground. He has a severed head, and using my sculpting tool, I just kind of made like a little trench coming off of his head and then going off of like a little lip, so that I can eventually put in like a blood river, kind of basically coming out of his head and then coming down and then dripping off of like just like a little bit of a rock dripping off of that and then onto the flattest part of the base. After all that was said and done, I just kind of pulled the Ragnar and the orc off of there, making sure to that they're not getting too stuck down. And I added a little bit of Vaseline onto the bottom of the orc, and then I really pressed them in there to let it sit for a little while, just to make sure that it hardens completely perfectly in that form. Once it did, I pulled the orc off and I cleaned it up cleaned the Vaseline out of there, and now I have the perfect indent so that I can paint the orc separately and then place him in there, and he'll be perfectly fitted in there and to do like the final touch up at the end. After that, I just made sure that all of the rocks and little pieces of rubble that were on there, I just added some thin super glue on the bigger pieces to make sure that they really stick in there and nothing like flops off, and let it dry. So here is a little bit of a final reveal for what I have so far. It's not completely done. I still want to add some texture paste on there, but I had to stop to make this video. So this is what I have so far, and the base for my Golden Demon piece. There was a little bit of a glimpse at it. I didn't want to show off too much because there's a lot more to come. So thank you guys so much for watching this Path to Golden Demon. There will be a lot more of the Golden Demon Path episodes coming up because we're getting closer to Golden Demon and I need to really work on this. I don't want to rush it. I don't want to feel like I don't have enough time, because I obviously don't do this full time. I have a job and I have other things that I have to be doing, so I don't have 8 hours a day to work on this. I have maybe a few hours every day if I really plan for it. There will be more episodes, but I'm still gonna sprinkle in some other stuff. As you may remember, I did just finish up 75 Hard, so there will still be a final video of talking about that and what the overall success of 75 Hard. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. There's still a lot more to do. Like I said, I still got more to do on the base, more kit bashing to finish up the miniature, and then obviously we're gonna have a good chunk of painting coming up in the future, including painting that backdrop, so doing some freehand and a lot of cool stuff to come. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel, make sure you follow along, hit the bell. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I appreciate you all for real, and I really have enjoyed this last, it hasn't been a full year yet, but we're getting there. We're getting to the 1 year, and it's been really fun, and I am so grateful for you guys. So thank you guys again, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.